everybody. Welcome. I'm so happy that some of you were dancing out there with me and I wasn't dancing totally alone. That is nice. We can all dance together. Um, I love that some of you were saying even chair dancing. That's great. I'm actually standing today because I've been spending way too much time in a chair and it is hurting. So I'm up in my standing position at my desk today, which means I get to dance around a little bit more. So thank you for joining me. It is lovely to have you all here. What are we going to talk about today? We are going to be making some surreal type images in a couple of different ways. So this is an example of something that I generated using Adobe Firefly, and I will show you how to do that. But I think we might end up spending the bulk of our time talking about stuff like this that I created fully without AI, or at least no AI that I was aware of, um, using Puppet Warp. This is one of my favorite compositions. Here is another one. You can see I'm all about twigs for this because they lend themselves so nicely for this particular thing. Here's another one. And yeah, I guess that was all the examples I had for you today. So, we're going to be talking about creating surreal text, and we'll take a look at ideas for where you can get source files or what might make good source files for this type of thing. And I have a link, I think, below the video in the description to a free source stock file from Adobe Stock. So for those of you who don't know, Adobe Stock has a whole free collection with millions of assets, and I take full advantage of that on a regular basis. And so as long as you are a Creative Cloud member or subscriber or whatever, you can access those assets and license them for free. So there's a link to one of those files below. And we're going to talk about Puppet Warp, and then hopefully we can have some time to explore Firefly, which is just another way that you can kind of get into this stuff. So we got lots of friends in the audience today. So thank you so much for joining. I love that Margaret Lovejoy said, "Who doesn't love a bit of chair dancing?" That's right, right? You got to get in the mood to have some fun with all of this stuff. We want to remember that this is fun, even when it's difficult sometimes and can also be frustrating. And I had been asking people what your experience is with Puppet Warp. And T Lily Images says she or he, I suppose, has not been able to use it successfully yet. And hopefully we can help out with that today. And yeah, I mean, it is one of those things that can be tricky. Like Selra said, I've tried Puppet Warp, but have not used it in a meaningful way. So I'm going to hopefully show you some meaningful ways, even if they are realistic or maybe a little bit surrealistic. So that said, let's get into it. And remember, you can leave your questions as we go, plop them down into the chat, and we will pop back over here every so often and dig in to check those out. So let's take a peek here into Photoshop. And I just wanted to kind of talk you through some of these images just so you kind of know what we're going for here. So I have a thing for fall, and I'm realizing that I think all of these images pretty much are fall themed. And I guess it's because I like to build these things out of twigs, and they are very plentiful in the fall, especially if you have a 9-year-old son at home. And we literally have twigs and sticks and branches everywhere because he loves them. So I think, I don't recall because this has already been a few years ago since I made this piece, but I think that I actually photographed these twigs just out in the backyard. I just went out and gathered a bunch of them and laid them out nicely on just a a clear space on like the patio or whatever, because like, you want to think ahead. If you're going to create your own source images for this kind of stuff, you want to think about when you capture them, you want to think about what's going to be easy to remove the background from. So, like, don't photograph these laying in the grass, because then you're going to have blades of grass crossing over and you'll have to clean it up and replace all that. So, make it easy on yourselves. So, I just photographed this on the patio. Um, and another thing you can do too, if you don't have like a good, clear, contrasting surface that you can lay the stuff down on, is you can just have like a cheap, 99-cent piece of poster board or something from, even like Walgreens sells that stuff, I think. So I have many of those things all around, so they're just easily accessible. So sometimes I take those outside with me to lay things out on and photograph. So what we're looking at here is a composite, obviously, and it's made of all these little twigs that spell out the word fall. So obviously, the twigs did not come off my tree looking like this. And while I suppose one option would be, you could always like collect all the twigs and then you could break them and spell out the words you want to spell and try and like position them and photograph them that way. That would be another way to do this. And then you could maybe just finesse it in Photoshop, but I don't know why. I don't think I thought of that at the time. And I just laid them out and photographed just straight up twigs. And then I separated all the different pieces from the background and moved them around and manipulated them with Puppet Warp to spell out this word. So if we just peek in here, you can see that I literally just have pieces. So I wanted them to be kind of connected. So this branch, like the F and the A, is all like one branch, or one big branch, I guess. And then the two L's come off here and they are a separate piece. So it helps to sketch this stuff out ahead of time and kind of know where you're going with this, because otherwise it can get just kind of confusing and overwhelming really easily. So I would suggest you can sketch it out on paper. You can literally just come into Photoshop on a white background and use black paint and whatever brush and just like draw it out, right? Because it's just a layer. You can throw it away later when you're done, but it is really helpful. So that said, these are all just different pieces. So I'm just kind of toggling these on and off to show you the pieces. What we don't see is the way that they were warped. So obviously this branch did not come off the tree or get found in my yard as the letter F, but I was able to use Puppet Warp to bend these pieces. And I just bent a bunch of different pieces and then put them together in a way that looks like the word. And then and then I even tried to get fancy here and have like swoopy bits happening. And then of course I just added all these other little things, and I don't even know if these leaves are like correct to be on branches like this, but you know what? Um I liked them. And let me move my bubble out of the way here so you can see there's one more leaf that I was covering up with my face. There's a little leaf there. So I don't even know if those are the right kind of leaves that would be on twigs, but I like them, and so I put them in here. So there's so many options. You can just basically do whatever you want, and if you like it, that's the point, right? That's the idea. So here's another example, and this I believe was a branch or a twig. This even might have been in that piece that I linked to down below. I don't recall. This was another piece that I made quite a while ago. And if I recall correctly, I think I did generate this scene minus the letters. I want to say that I was playing around when like Firefly and all that stuff first came out. And so I think um I generated the moss and the mushroom. And then I added the butterfly. I added the lighting up here. and the ladybugs, of course. And then, of course, I added the text. And then what really sells it is all the different lighting effects. So we can try and talk about some of that stuff if time allows. But you could see if I hide all the effects from all of the different layers, it doesn't look so good. If I hide the little bursts over there, right? So now it just looks kind of wrong. It doesn't look as great. So that's something to think about. And we can kind of talk about some of that today, but you can see like what a difference it makes to just add in that lighting. Um, and it really, where did those go? There we go. Now it looks like a cohesive piece, right? And it's just like so warm and delicious. And I don't know, it's like so yummy. I almost want to eat it. All right. So puppet warp is one of those things that you might commonly see people use for images like this, or, athletes, dancers, whatever, where you want to manipulate people. So their actual physical bodies. So if you think about puppets like marionettes, right? And you wanted to move the puppet's arm, you have to have you have to have strings, and you have to have the strings connected at different joints. Let's try let's try this setup, or maybe we'll go full screen. Here we go. So if you think about puppets and marionettes, they work by having all their joints connected to strings, right? So if you want to lift my arm up here, you'd have to have a joint or a string on my elbow to be able to pull it up. And then if you want to make it wave, you have to have another one on my wrist or whatever, and my shoulder to isolate that. So that's essentially how puppet warp works. So if you keep that in mind while we go through this, that might be a little bit helpful for those of you who've struggled with it before. Okay, so here we are. Let's take a look at what we've got. So first of all, I have a clear background, and then I have this subject who is separated from the background, and I've converted him to a smart object. So just for those of you who aren't familiar with it, smart objects are just a way to edit non-destructively, and they allow you to infinitely adjust the things you do non-destructively. In other words, you don't have to undo them because the adjustments are not applied. So it just gives us a lot of flexibility in our work. And you can turn any layer into a smart object by just right-clicking on it and choosing convert to smart object, which now, we're not going to see that because it's already a smart object. But if you right-click, you will see that option here, and then you can make it a smart object. And you'll know it's a smart object because it has this little square down in the bottom right corner, which I like to think of as a little suitcase, because in my mind, I think of smart objects as um, having a little suitcase to carry around all the pixel data so that none of it gets destroyed or thrown away at any time. So I feel like this icon, I don't know why, it kind of looks like a briefcase to me. Not really. Yeah, it doesn't really look like a briefcase, but that's how I think of it. So when you see that little icon there, then you know that you've got a smart object. So just to show you quickly in a human kind of form that might help this make sense, if we wanted to manipulate this, once we've got it isolated on its own layer and turned into a smart object, all we have to do is come up to the edit menu and we can choose puppet warp. Look at that. It's just right there in the menu. And when we click on it, you will probably see all this mesh appear. See all this? This is our warp mesh. If you don't see it, there's an option up here to show or hide the mesh. So you can toggle that on or off, depending how you like to work. Sometimes it's helpful to see the mesh because if you're doing some really wild distortions, it just helps you kind of be aware of that because you can actually see the mesh warping. But you can turn it off if you don't like it. Uh, and you can also change some settings up here. Um, for density, you can have a less dense mesh, so fewer points, or you can have a very high dense, high density mask with more points, but I'm going to just leave all this stuff set to normal because we're live streaming and I don't want to crash my computer with extra processing and stuff. But you can also set the mode to either normal, or it has options like rigid or distort. So I'll let you explore all of those as you need to, but I'm going to leave everything set to normal, and we'll leave the mesh on just so we can see it. But like, for example, if we want to bend this leg here, what we need to do is think about that marionette, and we want to think about the pivot points that we want to manipulate. So we'd want to manipulate the knee. So I'm going to click to put a little pin there. It's kind of like we're stringing up our marionette. And then we'd probably want to pin his hip so we can kind of pin that down. And maybe we want the foot. I don't know. Let's wait and see. It kind of depends where we want to move this from. Let's go ahead and put one here in his ankle, right? So we can then manipulate these points. We've got 3. We can manipulate them by just clicking and then dragging like that. See how it bends? That's it. That's really all there is to it. Sometimes you may notice that as you click and drag these things around, you see how he's kind of moving too. So anything that you want to sort of pin down, you can pin down by just adding more pins. So if we want him to quit spinning up here, I'm going to just click him right here to just pin him down. And then we can try grabbing this point, and you see now he doesn't move, right? So that's really all there is to it. There's a bunch of cool other advanced features that maybe we'll get to someday when I'll design. I'm really excited to play with some of them. But you can also change the pin stacking order. So we could, for example, if we want to get really nuts, we could have his foot come like this, and it can either be, see how it's in front here of this pin, or if we wanted to move it behind, we can come up here and move the pins almost the way we move layers. We can adjust their stacking order using these buttons up here. So now his foot's behind, now it's in front. Those are some crazy distortions, but you get the idea, right? So it can be useful to manipulate these things sometimes. But of course, I love text and type and design and stuff. And so I wanted to have some fun manipulating these things to actually try and form some letters. And one of the other ways that that can be really helpful is to actually, oh, and I don't think I have my layered version of it handy. Let me pull up. This says PSD, but you know what? I think it's not. Oh, it is. Okay, good. But I probably threw it out. So here's another one that I made where I spelled out the word harvest. And before I started putting all the letters on, I added a text layer. So I just found a font that I liked, and I added a text layer, and then I basically used it like a template, and I manipulated the branches to sort of follow the font. And that was great because it kind of helped me know where I was going and just manage the sizing and the spacing and all of that kind of thing. So here are let's see what else. I have just more pieces, right? So like the crossbar on the T is separate from the body, the S, and then I grouped things. Man, there's sometimes like the layers panel it looks overwhelming, doesn't it? There's a lot in here. And you can decide too, the easiest letters are going to probably be like blocky letters, like this, like in all caps, where you don't have a whole lot of curves except like on an R or an S or something. Mostly they're just straight lines. So that might be a great way to start. So we have our V that just has 2 pieces, the left and the right, etc. Right? So I basically made a P and then I turned it into an R by adding this piece here. I should point out, I guess, let's go back to our guy. And we'll go back to Puppet Warp. It's helpful to know how to remove pins because maybe you put one in that you end up not wanting. So let me put some of these back. And then let's say I accidentally added one like to his heel here. So if you want to remove it, you just Option or Alt click. So you can see when I hold down Option, there it is. If I hold down the Option key on a Mac or Alt on Windows, then when you hover directly over that piece, you're going to see scissors. So now if I click, it will go away. Another way to do it is if you right click on the pin, then you can just choose to delete it. And then if you click anywhere that you click, you're going to add pins. So that's a good a good thing to know. Let's pop in here to the chat and see if anybody has any dying questions. What's up? Hi, Craig. Oh, Deborah's here from Carney. Hello, Deb. It's nice to see you again. Dave Clayton is here. Hello, that's so fun. We're all gonna need real life puppet warp when we're old. Wouldn't that be amazing? Oh, that's a great idea. Yeah. So who knows? This is fun. And Steven says that he's done this, but he spelled out Halloween. That's a big long word to spell out. So good for you, Steven. That would be fun to see. If you get a moment, hit me up somewhere and share that. I'd love to see it. Okay. So that's a little look at how that works. And then I thought maybe for today's example, maybe we would make something like this because it's just fun and simple. And I don't know, I just feel like, hey, the world could use some peace right now. So why not just make that? If only it were so easy, right? So this is what I just actually put this together while our little countdown clock was running. So it was that quick and easy. And I just used this little mossy branch. So a lot of times when I'm building these things, I like to use as many different sticks and twigs and things as possible because I don't want it to look like I just repeated the same twig over and over again. um, but in this case, I don't know, it didn't bother me and I just did it anyway with this one and that worked out fine. So I have this background that just looks like this that I grabbed from Adobe stock. So let me show you that. Here's my little guy that I just downloaded. And I think I just searched rustic wood. What did I search? Desktop? Well, anyway, I searched something like that. Rustic desktop. There it is. So if you go to adobestock.com, and right here, you can just specify that you want to search their free catalog. And then you just type stuff in here like rustic desktop. And then when you search, you can, filter all kinds of options over here. But then if you find one that you like, you just click, when you hover over it, you click license and it will download. So I'm logged in with my Adobe ID, right? So these are free. So I'm just going to click license and then you'll see it's going to download. Did you see it? Now it's here in my downloads folder. So that is a great way to find this stuff. You can also type like twigs. And here's all different kinds. Like, look how much fun you could have with like the holidays coming up and all these different bits and bobs. Ugh, I love it. Okay, I could be here all day. I was checking the other day in my license history and I have like, it was almost 500 pages of items that I've downloaded. So it's a really great resource. Okay. Anyway, here we are back in this rustic wood thing that I downloaded and I have my little stick and I've already turned it into a smart object. So I'm just going to use my move tool to drag it into this scene here. And it's nice and big. Maybe we'll just leave it that size and see. So let's just warp it. So we're going to come up to edit and we're going to choose puppet warp. And I'm going to stick a pin in the middle, stick a pin on the end, and stick a pin down here. And then we'll just pull it. And we're making half of a circle. We could try and make a whole circle, I suppose, but that feels like a lot of stretching. So maybe I'm not going to do that. Another thing we can do is when we see this situation where I've pulled this pin down, but you can see that the twig is like coming around and then it's kind of like arching up a little bit. You can actually grab the pin and rotate it. Isn't that amazing? And you do that the same way that you would also remove it or delete it if you wanted, which is you hold down the Option or Alt key. But this time, instead of hovering right on the pin where you see the little scissors icon, this time you keep holding Alt or Option, but if you move your mouse a little away from it, you get that little rotation icon. I call it the macaroni noodle because it's a curved double-headed arrow. And then I'm still holding Alt or Option. And then if you click and drag, you can actually spin. Look at that. You can spin the pin. And that's going to give you way better results than trying to like add 1,000 more pins and just keep dragging stuff around. So does that look like half a circle? I think it's pretty good. So now I'm going to press return, or I mean, I'm going to come up here and click the check mark up there. And now we have half of a circle. So that's great. I'm going to move it over here. And we can just duplicate this by pressing Command or Control J. And I'll drag the copy over here. And this is a little confusing, but watch what happens if I try to bring up free transform so I can rotate this. So if I press Command T, I'm going to get this little window that's yelling at me and basically saying, hey, you've applied some warping transformation stuff to this, and we can't display it while you are transforming this with free transform. So we'll just say, yeah, that's fine. So now it appears that we lost all of our puppet warp, but I'm just going to spin this around. And then as soon as I press enter, look at that. It snaps back into the puppet warp. And then I can just kind of drag it over like that. So, you could play with that. Maybe we don't like that it is basically a mirrored image of itself. So you can flip it and distort it different ways. You could download more sticks or go photograph more sticks to work with. And then each piece ideally would be a different stick. But in the interest of time, I'm just taking one stick and making it work. All right, so that looks good. Let's go get the stick one more time, a straight version of it, and we'll drag it in here. And what we want is for this to become the lines of the piece symbol. So now I'm just pressing Command or Control T to get regular free transform. And I'm looking at this and thinking that looks pretty good. So I'm going to drop it there by pressing enter. And now we need the like bottom triangle piece. So I'm just going to, with my move tool, I'm going to hold down Option or Alt, and that gives me this double-headed arrow. And now I can click and drag to make a copy. And now I'm going to rotate this by bringing up free transform again by pressing Command or Control T and rotating it till we get the left side here. Return, and we'll press Command or Control J to make a copy again. Move it over here, Command or Control T, and let's flip it horizontally. So if you right click when you are in that free transform box, then you can choose to flip it as well. So I'm just going to do something like this. Now you'll notice that I did not scale this down because that would make the branch really skinny and it wouldn't be the same thickness as the rest of the branch that we used for the circle. So these are obviously too long. So what we can do is mask them, right? So for those of you who don't know what a mask is, it's just like a mask you would wear on Halloween that hides part of your face or your body, whatever, and shows other parts, right? Like if you have a mask with holes cut out for the eyes, your eyes will show, but the rest of your face is hidden. Same as masks in Photoshop. They work on a layer by layer basis. So this layer here, this is the stick extending out the top. And I want to basically hide the part that's extending beyond the edge of the circle. So I'm going to do that by putting a mask on it. And I do that by coming down in the bottom of the layers panel. And this little icon, I don't know if you can see that, it's so in the bottom, but the little icon that kind of looks like a camera, that's going to add a mask. And by default, the mask is blank, which shows up as white. Okay. So if you imagine the mask as being light and dark, like in a room that has no lights on, you can't see things. So right now the mask is light. It's shown by being white, which means we can see everything. So right now it's like a see-through mask. It's not masking anything. And the way that we make it mask stuff is we grab our paintbrush. So I'm pressing B for brush, and I'm confirming that I have black paint here on top. And then I just come in here with my brush and I just paint away stuff. That's it. Now I can try and paint this in a way that looks like, the edge of a twig. So probably don't want it to be perfect. So I want it to look like jaggedy. So great for hand painting on my trackpad here on my laptop. Now we're going to repeat that process for these other bits. So let's see. This one is this branch here. And maybe I'm going to scoot this down so we can keep the actual end of the stick and we'll just mask off this part. So again, with that layer selected, I'm going to click the mask button. Again, Photoshop gives me a blank mask. So it's like see-through. We're basically wearing a clear mask. And now we got to tell Photoshop which parts we want to hide by painting in the image with black paint. So now I'm just going to come in here and do something like that. If you make a mistake and you go too far like that, then you just flip-flop your colors. And you can do that by pressing the letter X on your keyboard, or you can click the little double-headed macaroni noodle right there, and that will flip-flop these. But I like exchange, because it's simple to remember, and then you just paint it back in. So something, I like it to be kind of irregular. So, oops, see, now I'm clicking too much and I'm getting a little obsessed. All right, let's just curtail that to something like that. That looks good. And then this part, we'll just paint all of that away. And then we have this bit left over here. So same thing. Select that layer, click to add a mask, and then paint with black to hide it. And then we can go ahead and play with the order of these things. So maybe I want this middle stick to be on the top. And I think this stick is a little too crazy over here. So I'm going to select that mask and then I'm going to hide more of it. That's like, it was kind of just basically sticking out too much. So I don't know, something like that. And we can always move stuff around and fine tune it as we need to. But like, that's not bad. We just made a peace symbol out of twigs and branches. But I can see that this part's repeating and I don't like that at all. So I'm going to target this this layer and I'm gonna unlink the layer masks. You see this? There's a little link in there. So that means if I grab this layer, well, I guess we'll keep it. We'll keep it. It's linked by default. That means that the mask will move with the layer. So that is actually what we want. So I'm going to spin this around. We'll have to add more to it. But that is looking way too matchy-matchy. I see questions coming. I'm going to pop over there in just a second. All right. And now I need to make some more mask because this area up here is showing. Okay, so that looks good. I like it, right? And then we would go through and add some layer effects really quickly. I'm going to build my effects on just one of these layers, and then we'll copy and paste them to all of it. So I'm going to build them on this piece here. And I'm going to do that by just double clicking in this empty area of the layer in the layers panel. And then we have a buffet of effects here on the left. So one of the things I want to add is a drop shadow. So I'm going to come down here and click. You actually have to click on the words drop shadow. If you just enable it, it'll turn it on, but you won't see the settings to manipulate it more over here. So here we can adjust our drop shadow settings, maybe something like so. And then I always like to play with an inner shadow as well. So you can, if you want to see what these settings are, you can just like screen grab this real quick. But those are the inner shadow settings. And I'll go ahead and click OK. And then we can see both of those things have been applied to this layer. So if I want to apply that to all the layers, I'm going to right click in the same empty area of the layer. And I'm going to choose way down towards the bottom. Oh my God, look how many things are here. Okay, this is why you right click on stuff so you can explore more options. And one thing in here is called copy layer style. So I'm going to click that, and then I'm going to click and shift click to select all these other layers. And with all of them selected, I can right click and choose paste layer style. And look at that. I just made a peace sign from tree branches, which is amazing, I think. Lots of fun, right? So let's see what you guys are saying about this. Oh, the top line should have been extended through. Really? I kind of see what you're saying, but I don't think that's right. That's what this person is saying. The top line should go all the way through. So are you saying the bottom triangle's divided in half? Oh, maybe you are. I think you might actually be right. Okay, we'll do that. Thank you, KK. Wow. Really? Okay, I'm not sure. We'll look into it. Um, Polka Dot Studio says, I love the peace sign idea for the holidays, right? Me too. Steven says, I need a full body mask. I get that. Yep, Robert. Hi, Robert. Good to see you here. Robert is also correcting me. Oh, I made a Mercedes symbol. Yep, I'm seeing it. Yes. You see, this is why it takes a village. It takes a community. I don't think I've ever made it through a live stream where I don't do something wrong. So thank you. That is hilarious. And I like that Robert points out that he's from the 60s. So you would know. Oh, and maybe that's why Steven said rockin' the logos, because I was making a logo instead of a peace sign. Oh, good. Yes, KK is just clarifying here that that top line, the vertical needs to go all the way through. Let's go do that quick before I just like mortify myself some more. So we'll come up here and that is this piece right here. So I'm going to cancel the mask by not delete it. I'm just going to turn it off for a minute so I see what I'm working with by shift clicking. So if you shift click, see that? You shift click, it just hides the mask. It basically just takes the mask off for a minute, and then we can see what we're doing. Whoops. And I also have all my layers selected, so that's not helpful. There we go. This is what you guys meant, right? And then we should probably rearrange some of that a little bit. So now, let's see. Now I need to edit this mask. And I'm going to paint with white to turn the lights back on this area. And I'll switch to black to hide this. You guys, no wonder. I was like, something about this doesn't look quite right. But then, of course, the Mercedes logo is easily confused. I could see that. So I knew I was making something. Yeah. There we go. So now we have to decide, what do we want on top? Do we want that vertical line underneath? I kind of like it going underneath the other two. Yeah, that looks better. And probably, I don't know, um, Robert from the 60s, maybe those vertical lines need to be a little bit like wider out. Possibly now, I don't know. But of course, this is hilarious, you guys. Okay, so now is this let's see. Okay, so we got it set up now. Yes, I think KK saying, was it just the desire for a new car? Who knows? I think I just have too much in my head and I'm mixing things up. Uh Kathy says it was popular in the Woodstock era. We should all know what a peace sign looks like. I think I don't know. I think I've probably more recently seen the Mercedes logo instead of the peace sign. Um oh, and Yora, uh, thank you. Yes, I did make these earrings. Aren't they fun? These are my 3 main Adobe loves, and they're just paper. They're just, so they weigh like nothing. They're very comfortable and they're shockingly durable. I've had these for several years now. I travel with them and everything, and they work, they're great. So if you are falling in love with them, you can find them on my website actually at kharaplicanic.com. Okay, what other questions? Anything else? I'm I'm high class because of the Mercedes logo. Oh, I am never gonna live this down, you guys. This is hilarious. Okay. Um, but there we have an actual peace sign now. So thank you. Uh there we go. We have an actual peace sign now. So grateful. Like, these are the things I should double check before I go live. This is what happens when I just made up this idea for this particular demo while we were doing the countdown. So lesson to me, don't wing it. I had other ideas, but then in the last minute I was like, "Oh, a peace sign sounds nice." I mean, a Mercedes logo. So hey. All right. Let's see. What else were we going to talk about? So that is a look at Puppet Warp. And then I also just wanted to point out, in our like 20 minutes ish that we have left, maybe Puppet Warp is not your cup of tea, or maybe you just want to keep exploring. So this is straight up, this is just experimental stuff I was doing the other day, right? So if you are familiar at all with Adobe Firefly, which is the amazing text to image AI tool, there are all these ways that people are creating all kinds of amazing type, like type that looks like it's made out of ice cubes or jello or whatever. Like, you could literally type whatever prompt into the screen that you want. And so I thought I would try it I thought, you know what? If I teach this thing about Puppet Warp, some people are probably going to say, why don't you just do that with AI? So then I was like, okay, well, let's try it. So this is what I ended up getting. And so I'm going to kind of walk you through how I did this. So first off, I started with this image here, which was just from um, Adobe stock from the free collection. I just searched like fall background or something. And then I used AI to generate the rest of this. And you might think, well, why couldn't you just paint that in? Well, you could, but you can see that there's a gradient here, right? So we have a darker color down here and a lighter color up here. So rather than me trying to match the gradient, I just had AI do it because that is what it's there for. So how did I do that? I dragged out my canvas, right? You know that you can grab the crop tool and then you can just drag. You can drag your crop, and if you drag it larger than your canvas, then that's how you extend the canvas. So I extended the canvas here, and then I basically just selected all of this empty area, which you can just do with any number of techniques. I just grabbed the magic wand here and I made a selection. And then it's always good when you're trying to generate extra pixels. It's always good to give Photoshop a little bit of a wiggle room, right? So right now I have a really clean edge right where the transparent pixels and the filled pixels meet. And so what I want to do is extend this a little bit. So with that selection active, I just went up to select, modify the selection, and I expand it by, I don't know. You have to guess. You have to think about how high res your image is and just guess. Maybe I'm going to type 40 pixels here. Perfect. So you just want like a little bit of overlap. And then from the contextual taskbar, which if you don't have it kind of annoyingly floating around on your screen, you can find it by going to Window. Ugh, I just saw it. Here it is. Contextual taskbar. And in the contextual taskbar, you're going to click Generative Fill, and then you're going to leave this blank and you're going to click Generate. And then it's going to fill it in. And it takes a minute. But there you go. Look at that. It filled it in not only once, but it gave me 3 different versions, which are all pretty similar. But you can pick one that you like the best. And then you can continue building on top of that. So, and then I don't know what all of this is. This is a mess of, I don't know what I was doing. I'm just going to delete all those. And then, okay, so here is one failed version. I think I used generative fill for this. So let me show you how that would work. Let's delete it and make another one. So then I thought, let's try this with generative fill. So I grabbed my rectangle selection tool and I made like a selection like this. And then in generative fill, when this pops up, I'm going to click on it. And then I'm going to type twigs in the shape of letters, spelling the word, and I'm putting this in quotes. I'm not a prompt expert. Thankful, end quote. And then we'll click generate. And I got like not great results doing it this way. But the other thing to know is that this stuff is rapidly changing every day. Every minute it seems. Okay, so this is like a little better. So, oh, it helps if I spell the word right. I did say thankful. Look at that. It made the S in here just for proof that I am not trouble. There's the word thankful and it wrote thanksful. Did they all do that? Oh, not that one. This one also put an S in there. So you never know what's going to happen. This one would obviously not be my top choice. This second option here is actually not bad. I am impressed and I didn't have to build it. And look at that. It like didn't really get the kind of twigs I was after, but you know, this is an iterative process. So you have to experiment and try different prompts. You can always also just come up here and click generate again, and that will rerun the prompt for 3 additional options using the same prompt. Or you could come up here and try tweaking this a little bit. Maybe I could just say brown bear twigs in the shape of letters, spelling, maybe I need to say spelling out the word thankful. Let's try it. Maybe that'll be better. Maybe it'll be worse. We got to live and learn. And again, it's putting in, now I'm starting to wonder, is thanksful a word? Just like my Mercedes symbol. Was that the peace sign? Oh my gosh, thanksful. Um, yeah, I'm pretty sure that's not a word. I don't know why it's doing that. That's hilarious. Anyway, yeah. Um, so I see in the chat you guys are asking about the contextual taskbar. Yes, you can pin it down, and I think that mine is pinned. Yeah, mine is pinned. So if you don't pin it, it will float around on your screen wherever it thinks is going to be helpful. And personally, it makes me bonkers. So I have it pinned, and you can pin it by clicking the little three dots over here. And then you can tell it to pin that location so it'll quit moving while you're working. I just, I typically have it up there at the top. I would love it if I could just like permanently dock it in my bar up here. I mean, look at all this empty space where this could live, but that's not an option right now. But you can pin it, and then if you're like, "Oh my gosh, go away," then you can also hide it by clicking that option. And then then it's telling you that you can get it back by choosing window and going back to contextual taskbar. So anyway, this is one way to work with generative AI stuff in Photoshop. You have to keep in mind that it doesn't generate this on a blank background. And what that means is if I'm looking at this and let's choose one that, wow. Oh, maybe because, did I spell it? Anyway, now I'm questioning everything. Oh, thankful. Yeah. Anyway, what was I going to say? Let's move this or not move this. So if I want to move this from where it ended up, and I just grab my move tool and I try and move it, you can see that it comes with a background around it. And so right now, that's the way it works. Maybe someday it will be able to generate with transparency. But right now, it completely fills in whatever selection you make when you go to generate it. That's the first step, right? Is you have to make that selection. And then it will fill the entire selection with pixels. They will end up looking like they're not there because it will match perfectly, but it will not be generated on a transparent background. So just know that, and then get everything the way you want it before you generate that, because if you want to move it later, it's not going to work very well. Um, okay, so what are some other ways to do this? Let me talk about two other ways. And one of them is newish down here. So you can see at the very bottom of my toolbar, and I am in whatever the current version is. I'm not a version snob, so who knows? Whatever this is, it's the current version. The most recent one. I update this whenever there's a new update, I update it. So, this is down here, and this is like this is going to bring up a generative fill workspace. So if I click on it, it's going to pop up this right here, and then you can actually generate a whole new image from here. Like rather than starting in an existing image, you can just make a whole new image from this thing. So let's type like brown bear twigs on spelling, let's see, arranged to spell the word thankful. And then I'm going to put comma on a clear white background. Oh, clear might be confusing. On a white background. Okay, now we're going to tell it what type of thing we want to generate. So I'm going to say photo. I don't want to add any effects. And if I wanted to upload a reference image for style, I could. I wonder, let's see, do I have it handy? Okay. Maybe I can upload. It's hard to know what's gonna confuse it and what's gonna be helpful, maybe I'll upload this other thing that I generated as an example. Let's see. For style. I don't know. I don't know what's gonna happen. So we'll just click generate and it's gonna do it. And um wow, look at that. I mean, it's gorgeous. We have 3 different examples here. It did put it right into this document because this document was open. But I believe the idea is that if you don't have a document open when you click over here, that it just makes one for you. So that's interesting. These are actually beautiful. Look how it took the color from that other version. Now, here's what's kind of weird and annoying about this to me is like, why did it cut it off? Look at this. So I can't, um, we'd have to expand it. So I don't know if you guys have a favorite, but this one seems to have twinkle lights included for some reason, which is kind of fun. So let's see if we can generatively expand on this. So I'm going to press the letter C to get my crop tool. And over here, I'm going to set it to a 16:9 ratio because why not? That's what it is currently. And then over here under fill, I'm going to choose generative expand. So if we see that, our options are to either just let the extended canvas area be transparent, or we can tell it to generate more picture. So that's what we want. So I'm going to choose generative expand. And now I'm going to just drag this out with enough space to hopefully finish the picture. I don't know why it does that. So now we'll just hit enter and we'll see what happens. And ooh, while we wait, oh, that was quick. Oh, ah, it did it. Do we like it? It did pretty well. Let's see what the other, ooh. Oh, I think I like the second one better. I don't know why. The T is longer. That's so pretty, you guys. But isn't it weird that I had to extend the canvas? I think it's funny that it just like assumed I wanted it cut off. I don't know. That's interesting. Which brings me to a third example of how to do this stuff, which is in the web itself. And this is personally my favorite way to work. I think in the current version of Photoshop, in the beta version, I think more of these options are integrated in that button on the toolbar that I just showed you. But I'm going to show you how I like to do this in Firefly, actually. So I'm just on the web. This is firefly.adobe.com, and it is free. And so we could just, let's go back and I'm going to just steal my prompt that I had in here because it was great. So I'm going to copy that prompt and we'll come over here and I'm going to paste it. And then I'm going to click generate. And in Firefly, woo, look at these. That was fast. In Firefly, you kind of have to make that initial first draft and then you can go in and be more specific. So for example, over here on the left side of the screen, it's defaulting to square. I don't want it square. I want it widescreen. I do want it to be a photo. For composition, um, this is what I ended up creating. So you might have seen this in my bridge somewhere. So I was having troubles where it was cutting it off all the time. And I just wanted it to get it right. And I didn't want to have to crop it and generative expand just to get the full word. So what I did was I just took a text layer and I made this. And then we're going to upload this. I also wanted it to be scripted font. And so one way that I could communicate that was to upload a compositional reference. So here under composition, I'm going to upload that file, which is here, which is icons, which is this. So I'm going to upload that. And now it's asking to make sure like we're using my own image. I'm not infringing on copyright. And then for style, we can upload a reference image for style. So for that, why don't we do this? Let's go to this image and I'm going to save this as a JPEG. I guess we'll put it in here. We'll just call it style and I'll name it JPEG. And then we'll upload this as a style to match um, the image that we're about to make, right? So let's now click the reference image and where did I just put it? Style, here it is. Okay, so there's two different things you can reference. You can reference style and you can reference composition. So we've now done both. And then I'm just gonna leave everything else the way it is and I'm just gonna click generate. And then we cross our fingers and we hope and we hope and we hope. This is so cool. It gets a little confused with the script fullness. So this is why at this point I still did the letters by hand because I don't know how well you can really see this. This is gorgeous. Let's click upscale so we get a higher res version. There it is. So you can see that, right? So that is beautiful. So beautiful. Again, it's doing weird things. I guess that's the K and the F. Ooh, the F looks a heck of a lot like the K. I almost thought it was two Ks for a minute. So anyway, more tweaking maybe to be done. The branches over here look really great, but like the Puppet Warp does a way better job of realistic branches here. So that's why it's so handy to have all these different tools in your toolbox because you never know what's going to work and what's maybe not. So I love this the leaves wrapped around like that. That is beautiful. So then to download this, we can just click this button here and it will download. And yeah, then we could pop that back into Photoshop. But this is also gorgeous and much more realistic. It's not the scripty font that I wanted, but I do really like it. So let's see, what questions does all of this bring up for you guys? Let's see, we talked about pinning that taskbar. And Kathy's asking what nationality I am. I have a rare name. Yes, my husband is from Bosnia, so it's a Bosnian name. We are total American story. He came as an immigrant. My mother came as an immigrant from Cuba. And so now I'm half Cuban, half German, and married to a Bosnian. So fun, exciting. That's like the American way. Thankful has only one L. Yes, Piper Swingley. That's the way I typed it. So, thank you for keeping me. I was starting to wonder now, right? After the Mercedes logo and then Photoshop's AI dropping an S in the middle of thankful. I was starting to wonder how many L's are in thankful. And I was doubting myself. But yes, it has one L, as was the way that I typed it. But then I went back and thought about adding a second one because Photoshop put an S in there and suddenly I was questioning all things in the universe. That is so funny. Oh, Robert Conway's so sweet and he creates these really cool books. So I'm glad he says that he liked that and he's going to put it in his next book called Esmeralda and the Chrysalis That Didn't Work. Well, I can't wait to see that, Robert. Lydia says, great topic. Will this be posted somewhere to watch later? Yes, right here on YouTube. As soon as we're done, you can just go back and rewatch the making of the Mercedes-Benz logo. Oh, you guys. I am just so humbled. Eric says, can you type a word and then turn the type into a selection and Jen fill the selection? Oh, that's a great idea, Eric. You could. And I think the best way to do that, let's actually pop over and let me kind of show you what that would possibly be like. So here is this image that I made, right, with the type. So one thing that you could do, as you're suggesting, is to turn the text into a selection. And yes, you can do that by Alt or Option. Oops, what am I doing? Command clicking, excuse me, command or control clicking on the thumbnail right here. And this works whether it's a type layer or any kind of layer. So if you command or control click on the thumbnail of a layer, Photoshop will put a selection around whatever is on that layer, whether it's type or it's a blob or it's a leaf or whatever it is, it's going to put marching ants around it. So the trouble is now, if we hide this, the trouble is that if we go to generate something right now, we didn't give Photoshop a lot of room to work. So I think this is great to try. Let's try it. But before we run it, I would want to come to the select menu and I would want to choose modify and I'd want to expand it a bit, which then we get, that can mess up the letter forms, obviously. So this is going to be tricky, but let's try. Let's maybe instead of 40 pixels, let's try 20 and see. Yeah. Okay. So now we have room for Photoshop to like work, right? It's got to be able to blend things. So it wants to generate space around whatever it generates because it's going to build in shadows and things like that. So now let's go back to our contextual taskbar and I'm going to paste in that same prompt, but I'm going to skip the part about a white background because we already have it. Spell the word thankful using, so maybe instead of block letters, let's say using script cursive. Maybe we should say cursive so it doesn't, we'll say cursive letters. Okay, I have no idea if this will work. This may crash and burn. This is the joy. This is what happens when I teach live. We make Mercedes-Benz logos and things get spelled wrong. Ah, so look at that. That was a great idea, Eric. Let's see what the other options are. You can see how the twigs are so thin, but they are twigs. It's hard to tell though because they are so thin. So, I would maybe let's go back and let's expand that even a little bit more and we'll try it one more time. Just one more time. Select, modify, expand. Let's say instead of 20, let's go 40. So it's going to be, distorted a little bit, but we'll paste this in and the word thankful. See, I spelled it right. In a cursive, what did I say? In a cursive font. All right. So maybe now that we made it even thicker, maybe it will make the twigs a little thicker. What is that? Those look like the pokiest branches. Okay. Meh. So you can see that was a great idea to try and prompt it. So one of the ways that we can prompt things is not only with the words that we type, but we can indeed help guide the AI by the shape of the selections that we make. So that's a great way to help it get the shape of the letter forms is to actually convert that font into a selection. And then you can see that it really did make an impact. It's just not super great at rendering those those twigs in a realistic manner in this case. But, you know, the other thing is too, is maybe if we chose, I don't know, a less scripty font or like a scripty font, but maybe, I don't know, maybe with slightly different forms or something like that. Maybe one that's less loopy. So there's a lot of different options, but that is great. Um Yes, a headline type font I think would be great. Um, so if we pop back over here, Eric is saying maybe you could use a headline type font. Absolutely. That would definitely help. I think that's kind of what we got by default. So that is sort of what it was doing when we didn't even specify that. But if you have maybe a very straightforward letter face and you just want like a particular shape for one of the letters, like maybe the first letter or something, then you could do that and that would help prompt Photoshop. So these are all great ideas. Any last minute burning questions? I think we've gotten we've gotten to them. I swear, every single time we do one of these, I do something. Like it's either a tech thing or I don't know. That's just funny. We're keeping it humble, keeping it real here, everybody. So, thank you so much for joining me and let us know down in the comments below something else you might like to see tackled on a future live stream. And as always, thank you for being here. And if you're curious about Creative Pro, you can check out the Creative Pro website at creativepro.com. We have a number of events coming up, including next month, we have a design and AI summit, and it's multiple days, lots of different AI tools, and really amazing things. So if you're interested in that, you can check it out at creativepro.com/events. So thank you so much. And until next time, happy Photoshopping. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.